on our own iPads. And Mike, if you want to walk us through this, I'll go at a pace you're comfortable with. We do have a witness scheduled for 2:30. I want to try and stick to it, but we'll get this done as we need to.
Do you want me to just walk through the changes?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay. Well, the first change is on page 4.
Everybody have
Does this show up as 4.1?
No, this is
draft 2.4 with a March 3rd, 2023 date and a 10:05 timestamp.
Yep, 10:05 timestamp. Got it, March 3rd. Okay.
So page 4, line 3, this is in the new chapter on funding, providing grants to agricultural fairs and field days. There had previously been a reference to the deleted section under which the agency's previous stipend rule had been enacted. And you discussed that it wasn't good practice to cite a repealed statute. So that was removed. And instead the language is that the fair that received grant funding through the previous state's stipend fund for agricultural fairs.
So that's at the top of page 4, subsection 1. I remember having this conversation. You brought it to our attention, so thank you, Mike, or maybe it was Representative Rice. But in any case, everybody good with this change?
Yeah.
Okay. Next change is page 7, section 2. You wanted to be clear that the fairs and field days that were receiving money under the stipend fund or stipend rule would continue to be eligible for grants, even though they might not be a 3-day fair or meet some of the other eligibility criteria that are in the new statute. And so section 2 is a transition, continued eligibility provision. It is consistent with the new language because the new language does allow those fairs and field days that previously been awarded to continue to be eligible. But this is really just very clarifying, notwithstanding the eligibility requirements. An Ag Fair Association that received financial assistance awards under the agency's previous state stipend shall be eligible for a grant under 6 VSA Chapter 219. So anyone that previously was awarded continues to be eligible.
And who would like to remind us of why we emphasize this?
I think at least one reason was the possibility of a fair going out for a year and then wanting to come back in. Franklin County, I think.
Right. One example, yeah.
Possibility of having not going out and currently they would then never be eligible to come back in, or they would not be eligible for money the first year they wanted to come back in.
Yeah, and we heard that Franklin County there's concern about the fact that they don't own the land that they operate. Yeah.
And the other reason was there was one fair that's just a 2-day instead of 3-day.
The Guilford Fair.
Yeah. Okay. Representative O'Brien?
Does anybody remember if the Vermont Farm Show received financial aid from the agency in the past? That fell under this sort of stipend bucket?
Yes, Representative Graham.
I do believe they were when they were operating. Now they basically have to operate a year before.
But they would be eligible, or they would have to perhaps wait a year?
For attendance numbers.
Would they though? Because if they've received it in the past, would that then?
I'm not sure.
I think we may have
Probably
discussed this specific example that because I'm not sure. Maybe I'm mixing up two things. Maybe Mike, you can help.
Well, I'm just looking at the Vermont Ag Fairs page, and they were listed as a fair, and they did receive a funding award previous to they went out. They weren't operational in 23, I don't think. They'd be eligible under this provision and underneath the language on page 4, that it operates an ag fair or field day that is open a minimum of 3 consecutive 8-hour days, or it operates a fair that received grant funding through the previous state stipend fund for ag fairs. So it's still eligible.
Okay,
Okay, great.
okay, that's good, thank you.
Okay, page 7.
Representative Rice?
So I think the difference here, going down to page 6, is that they would be eligible, but they wouldn't necessarily have the attendance to add to the on line 9.
Yes.
Section, so equitably distribute according to these criteria, and attendance is one of them.
It's one of the criteria, yeah.
It will definitely come into play that they weren't in operation, but then you're basically going to be relying on the secretary's ability to award proportionate shares. And so I think that that's still an opportunity for those fairs.
Okay,
On page 7, line 15, this is the and or that Representative Rice had noted and the agency agreed with.
okay,
The next is page 8. At the bottom of the page, this was a language that the agency had requested in the section that allows them to extend the period for inspection of a weights and measures device. Currently, they have 12 months, but they've asked for a longer period. And the highlighted section is provided that the period shall not extend more than 24 months from the date of application. So basically, they have 2 years instead of 12 months.
okay,
And then on page 18, in the new definition of nursery, there is that language that says somebody that installs nursery stock for commercial gain is now a nursery dealer. I'm sorry, and you wanted to add a definition of install. I had to look around for this. I had to go to a couple of landscape associations and try to refine what I thought your intent was. So there's a new definition of install, means the placing, fixing, or planting of nursery stock in the ground or soil. It does not mean delivery of nursery stock to a purchaser or the placing of potted nursery stock within a structure or its curtilage. So it's you're putting it in the ground. That's when you are an installer.
Representative Rice?
Mike, can you remind us, do we have a definition of distributes?
No, but that has generally been determined to be it's not just selling, it can be the transfer or the bargaining.
So would somebody who is delivering nursery stock to a purchaser who's purposefully left out of the definition of install, would they be included in the definition of distribute?
So is your proposal to say install does not mean delivery or distribution of nursery stock?
I'm just wondering if we are excluding people from being called installers, but then the next word after installs is distributes, and would those people just be considered distributors and therefore be included in this anyway?
Well, distributors are already in, correct? And so,
So if nursery dealer means any person who sells, installs, or distributes, we're excluding somebody who's delivering nursery stock from being installer, but are they a distributor? Or are they
well,
distributing?
let's talk about the delivery limitation. Do you want that to be for any delivery of nursery stock, say Walmart. Walmart has a nursery and they have a regional distribution center for their nursery stock. Is that going to be included? Because right now Walmart is regulated as a distributor. But they're not delivering to a purchaser, they're delivering to their regional store.
So I think, and others can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this definition of install was born out of the concern that we're not burdening somebody who, as one of many things they might do, picks up a shrub at a nursery and delivers it to somebody's house for them. And my question is, okay, so we've done that under the definition of install, but would they still be considered to be distributing that nursery stock, and therefore it doesn't really matter that we've taken them out of the definition of install?
Well, how about this? So on page 18, you still have means placing, fixing, or planting a nursery stock in the ground or soil. But then you say install does not mean delivery of nursery stock by a person who is not otherwise a nursery dealer or to a purchaser, home, or business for the placing of potted nursery stock within a structure or its cartilage. So if they're not already a distributor, they're not going to be a distributor.
Representative Lipsky.
I have a question about the definition of curtilage.
Well, before we get to that, yeah, we probably all do. Vocabulary word. But just wanted to see whether Mike O'Grady's suggested wording there was what you were looking
I
at.
guess I'm wondering if my line of questioning is making sense to people in the room.
Yeah.
Are you understanding what I'm trying to get at? And
Of course.
does his answer get at what I'm trying to get at?
Are you trying to basically say if someone isn't installing it, they're still delivering it and
So-
they're still a distributor?
Right. So my concern is that, and this, frankly, it was not my thing to want to disqualify these people from being included in this, but it was a concern, and the concern that's being addressed was that install doesn't mean somebody who's just taking it and delivering it to a person, but does distribute include those people? And so are we sort of not really actually excluding those people from being included in the definition of nursery dealer because we're not excluding them from both install and distribute?
And so
Right.
you had asked whether there was a definition of distribute,
Distributes.
and Mike O'Grady said no, doesn't think there is, or at least not here.
Chair.
Representative O'Brien.
No, I think Mike's wordage there, Mike O'Grady's wordage made sense as far as, I could buy scions from, say, the St. Lawrence Nursery in New York, and the Postal Service would deliver them to me, which would not make them a nursery dealer, right? So I think if that delivery part, doesn't meet that sell, install, or distribute, then at least all those deliverers that Mike Rice is referring to wouldn't get caught up in this.
Yeah. So I'm going to suggest that we ask Mike O'Grady to make the change that he just walked through or something similar to it. I think rather than, is that the last change, Mike?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I think maybe I'll ask that you do that at your leisure, and we won't vote this out right now. We'll come back with a clean copy tomorrow that And in the meantime, if you, Mike Rice, if you want to give it more thought and check in with Mike O'Grady, feel free to do that. Just want to be sure that we're not losing sight of the original intent here, and it's, yeah, getting a little weedy. Other thoughts on what we have in front of us before we close it for the day?
Just the question of curtilage.
Oh, yes, thank you. Want to talk to us about curtilage?
It's generally the area around a home or structure. It's a legal word. It's incorporated into concepts of probable cause and law enforcement entry onto property. It's a word that the judiciary knows well.
Okay. And now we know it too. All right. Mike, are you good with what we've just asked you to do then?
Yep. I can do that. I'll probably have some proposed language for Rep Rice and others if they would like it, probably by the end of today.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. All right. We are used to moving quickly from one topic to another in this committee, and we are going to do it again. Now we'll go back to H126. Unless anybody wants to say anything, just to wrap up that conversation, we'll plan tomorrow at some point then to come back with the clean copy of the bill. If anybody wants to take a look at it tonight, one last chance, but we'll look that out. I don't think there's anything in there that's going to be concerning. So we now, hi, welcome, Trey. You want to come up to the table?